In this video, I had the pleasure to chat with a friend and design strategist, Bryan Sattler. Over the course of his career, Bryan had the fortune of working with startups, nonprofits, and agencies to define product vision, craft compelling stories, and design seamless, human-centered experiences across complex ecosystems. He helped innovators create, capture, and deliver meaningful value through user experience design, research, and business strategy. Currently, Bryan is a design leader and an experienced design strategist at PwC. Awesome. So thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
If you can maybe tell me a little bit about how did you get into experience design? I'll try to also listen more, which is hard for me, but I will listen.
Well, you do research, you have to listen to people all the time.
Right? That's
yeah. Well, so how did I get into the field? So when I would say it definitely was not a straight line. It was a very squiggly line. When I started out, which was, oh my God, a long time ago to say, UX was still in its nascency. And so at that time, it was a lot of like web design, graphic design, and things like that, which I was trained in fine arts growing up. And so I had kind of an art background. But when I started my first undergrad, it was actually in like business and marketing, completely unrelated. But on the side, I was actually just learning about graphic design. So I was self-taught in graphic design for quite a while. And then when I discovered, yeah, and when I discovered, web design, and then also, things like WordPress, I started making websites for people. Really small scale at first, but then kind of turned it into my own little freelance gig that I did. And that's kind of how I got into it. I mean, over time I did get my degrees, in design and development, and then my MBA in design strategy. So, I have.
How did you get into from liking it and doing it on the side? Like, how did you get your first official experience design job, and what did you do?
Yeah. Well, since I had like no official experience, what I did was I found a local design agency in Michigan where I grew up, and they were hiring kind of like a project manager / coordinator who to manage the all of the design projects that they had. And so they did web design and graphic design, for print and digital. And so I thought that was a good way for me to get in. And so as I started working there, I was managing the projects, but then I also started to kind of provide a little bit of creative direction and help them improve their ideas. And after a little while of working there, I convinced my boss to let me take on a small portion of a project. And so started doing some of the graphic design and web design for the company. And then eventually from there was able to take on my own, lead my own projects.
Like when you hear like experience design, or how to explain experience design to people when they ask you?
So I know the official term is like, experience design or user experience design, or a lot of people use that term. I even have it in my description of my bio on LinkedIn. But it's kind of one of those weird things where we say that we do experience design or user experience design or UI design, product design, all those things you mentioned. But at the end of the day, like experiences are something that are unique to each individual. This is something that I learned from one of my favorite design professors, design and strategy professors, where he basically was like, look, like you can't control the experience that happens in somebody's head, but you can create, products or services and things that provoke experiences, and you can guide them through their experiences through the things that we make. And so I think that's kind of, a really important distinction for people to understand, is because, you know, there's a lot of biases when people make stuff, right? They, you know, based on your context, your background, where you come from, you perceive the world in a certain way, and that's different than other people. Which is why diversity in, you know, in design and especially the product world is so important, is so that we create products that are inclusive. But to really answer your question, you know, experience design to me is, first of all, starting out with empathy for our fellow humans and understanding what outcomes that they're looking for in their life, whether that's an enterprise, you know, B2B product, or it's a consumer product. So, you know, helping people achieve those outcomes. You know, it's not just trying to find problems and only focusing on the problems. It's also looking for a way to delight people, to make their lives easier. And, you know, I think that's probably a good way to sum it up.
I actually really like what you said about guiding the, like, because I always tend to think about it also like guiding the environment and the experience of a product. So it's not necessarily that you're designing for only the screen or the product itself. You
Yeah.
have to think about, you know, with the empathy map and other things or tasks you do, like you have to think about the whole experience, and a whole narrative of the story. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna steal that from you from now on.
That's so
I'm
true,
gonna
though. I mean, like a lot of people, you know, when they think of design, especially in product design, they
Yeah.
think of within the constraints of the viewport, and it goes so much further beyond that. That's why, if you're only doing, you know, user testing of prototypes, or usability testing of products, you're missing a whole, you know, other world of information that you need to have the context about that person's life. That's why it's better to, you know, pair that with observations, watching people do what they do, even without your product,
Yeah.
so you understand the full context of their life. So it's like you don't really know what sticky notes they may have on their table, if they're printing stuff out and highlighting it. You know, all of those types of things are super important for us to really know what they actually need. Beyond, people will, even if you interview people, right? Sometimes they will tell you something, but it's not exactly what they do. Actually, most of the time, people say one thing and they do another thing. Or you ask them about a previous experience, even if you ask them about a very specific instance, that, you know, humans tend to generalize, and over time our memory degrades and we begin to like conflate experiences and memories together, and it's really not exactly what happens. So anyway, that's why I think it's so powerful to do observations like contextual inquiries and stuff.
Yeah, I think the next question is a pretty interesting question to me, and I kind of like, that's one of the things I did this project, because I was thinking about like, why experience design? Why you like experience design? What gets you up to go to your job every day? What do you love about it?
I would have to say it's just the impact that you're able to have on people, um, especially with products and services, because when you are, if you're just doing something for one person or for a single client, like this kind of bleeds over into some of your other questions, but like I personally, I've worked in agencies, but I much rather work in product companies, because if I'm designing for a client, I can interview some of their customers and I can do some other research, but ultimately I'm designing for them.
Yeah.
And I don't get to see the full impact of my work. And when I'm in a product organization, I get to see a large, you know, not the entire life cycle, because I'm not going to say same company for my whole life, but you know, I do get to see a much richer, you know, amount of feedback from the work that I do. And it, you know, when you create a product, it can be used by millions or billions of people, if you're in consumer space. And I think just knowing the impact that that can have, and there's just so many unexpected things that come out of it, that you would, when you first start out building a product, you have no idea the ways people are going to use it or what it's going to do for them or the people that are in their lives or that they work with. Most of my experience in the product world has been in B2B. And so the coolest things to see are just, people getting promoted and getting awards and things like that. And when that happens, like as professionals, we know what it means when you go through different levels. I mean, it opens up more opportunities for you to have more freedom financially for you and your family and your friends. And so like that is, that's awesome. And it just, it's something that like without what we did, they may not have had that promotion. And so it helps them do more than they could do. And it's like in outside of the product world, just when I have conversations with people, I always, I don't know, kind of default towards trying to push people to be better and to do more and to believe that they can be more than what they actually think they can, And so that's what excites me about product is it's kind of like gives people superpowers because through technology, we're able to empower people to do things that they couldn't do on their own. Yeah. And so that's what excites me about it.
What are the phases you went through in your career as a designer? So in terms of your creative and design process.
When I started out, it was, the basics. I mean, the basics of design thinking. But, I would start out by really trying to understand the value proposition of the product. So I would always ask, questions. Back then it was with clients. So I'd always give them a questionnaire to understand the value proposition, to hear what their customers said about their product, to do a little bit of secondary research. But I mean, over time, my process has gotten a lot more sophisticated. And now, I mean, I'm doing a lot more creative direction and research than actual UI design. I still do, put together quick things, for mock-ups or quick prototypes and things for storytelling, but usually it's somebody else is doing that now. So that's probably the biggest thing that's changed because I used to do everything from end to end. But yeah, over time, I learned a lot more about how to actually do real user research, interviews and contextual inquiries and usability testing and all of that good stuff. And I've been, included a lot more frameworks. And I would say the biggest change has been just really learning about how to tie what we do to business value. And be able to communicate with executives about that and why the decisions that we make can help drive customer value and ultimately revenue. But all the different things that are important to the business about whether that's lowering cost or improving your NPS or whatever those things, even though NPS is a little debatable, but when it comes to customer, delight and, things like using like the Kano model to really, which I prefer, to really understand what people care about and what's important, what differentiates your product from other products, and, how do you get to a point where you achieve product market fit, not just have something that looks pretty.
The next few questions is pretty much for someone whoever listening and would like to be a product designer at some point or aspiring to be one or trying to get into the industry. So what is your thoughts in general on 9-to-5 jobs versus freelance in UX design? Which one would you prefer? Consumer also versus B2B? Like in general, someone who is trying to get into the industry, if you want to give them your thoughts about each type.
Yeah, I mean, look, it really depends on where you are in your career, whether this is a new career for you, you're just graduating from, university, or you went to General Assembly or wherever, and where you're located. I was just reading a post on Facebook the other day from some of the alumni from my second undergrad, my undergrad in design and development. And some of them, this is from like people who are in the music industry, and they were having, some of them said they were having a hard time finding a job or whatever, and they were kind of complaining that the university didn't help them find a job. And I kind of laughed at it, and I was like, come on, like seriously, because you can't, you have to hustle to get your own job. You can't blame it on anybody else. Yep. And definitely not the university. That is not their job. Their job is to educate you, not get you a job. Despite the fact that they have a career department and they try to help you, they don't guarantee that. Yeah. And the other thing is, like, I read a couple other people who are like, well, I live in the middle of, Idaho or something, and there's not really that many great jobs here in my field, and I really want to get it. And it's like, well, then maybe you need to move. Maybe you need to, not necessarily, you don't have to go to the Valley to get a job, but you could go to even like North Carolina. There's jobs there. You could go here. You could come to, I live in Texas. You could go to Austin. There's even jobs up north of Texas where I live. North of Dallas. There's plenty of companies here that are hiring right now. And so it's really like, if you don't have the opportunity for you right there, you need to make the opportunity happen. You need to, like, I moved across the country. Yeah. And I had a family. So like, people always say, well, I don't know if I can do this, or people, the company's asking me to do an internship. Okay, well, do the internship and drive for Uber. Like, do what you got to do to get into the field. Like I told you, when I started, I didn't immediately get a job as a designer. I started out doing project management stuff. I didn't even know how to do project management. Yeah. But but you have to figure out how to do it. And like when I left that one job, I did freelance for a while, and it's okay, but it's a grind. Like you have to be always looking for new business. Yep. And you have to have some business savvy to maintain your customers as well. It's a lot easier if you have a job, because that's your only client, basically. Yeah. And you get a salary, and you don't have to worry about not being able to pay rent, which I went through. So, I did the freelance stuff, and I learned a lot, and it was fun, and I got to work on a lot of things. I got to work in many different countries, traveling and working with my customers or clients and stuff. But I definitely prefer working in an established company, even if it is a startup, which is not 9 to 5. It's like 9 to 9 or more.
They call it 9 to 5. I don't know who did say 9 to 5, because I never been on a job and I finished at 5. But
there's bankers and government workers.
I know, but I think for us it's different though, like, because we are designers, like we love what we do. Like, actually nobody's forcing me to stay until 9 and 10, but sometimes I do, because I want to finish and do a good job and get my team to get like design work out of the door and test it and things like that. So we're passionate about it. I really like your point about hustling, because that's just kind of like how I started in the design business. I remember I was doing a lot of creative work because I wasn't really sure what I was gonna go next, and I was doing my program at NYU kind of related to the web design and mobile devices and interaction design in general. So I was doing a lot of like photography assistant. I did graphic design. I did web design. And I did that all on my own, just going to people and like, hey, I do that. Like, do you want someone? And I remember my first internship, I actually wasn't paid because of, I just pretty much told the studio owner, like, please just give me an internship. I don't want to get paid. I'm working in the weekend. I'm good, but I just want to be in it. So I did the internship, and he was actually like didn't want to do it because it was illegal to not pay me, but I was like, just don't worry about it. I just want to be in the studio and learn. And I ended up doing a lot of like design work in the studio and had it in my portfolio. And the number one thing also, like you mentioned, it's really amazed me sometimes when designers or someone who want to be a UX designer or a product designer and they don't have a portfolio yet. So I always say like, this is no, it's not a no, like it's absolutely, you cannot have any job without a portfolio in design or experience design. Even if you don't have the education, if you don't have the experience, just go design something and put it in your portfolio and just show it as your portfolio. I remember also doing a lot of like redesigning for like Twitter and Facebook that nobody asked me to do, but I just wanted to kind of practice and have the wireframe in my portfolio. So that's something I would also myself recommend to anyone to do. If you don't have any work, if no one to give you any job or work, just redesign something out there that it exists and just highlight, show the process you did, the task flows, why you did it that way. And that at least will show the people that you are serious about this and you can do it. And it will get you either an internship or a junior designer job. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to add to that. I mean, like when you do those redesigns, it's important that you actually do a little bit of research too. So you want to like talk to other people who are using those products, try to understand, what's the problem, what are the outcomes people are looking for, what did you learn, how did you iterate? Like you have to it's like, you have to show your work. So that a lot of people, when they create portfolios, they fail to show the process.
But this has really been really an awesome chat, and thanks, man, for doing this.
Of course, thank you.